Hi everyone, I am Dr. Hariharan, Professor of Biotechnology. I welcome you all once again for my another lecture session that is about plasmid vector. So in my previous lecture I have discussed about the vector, a brief introduction, what is a vector, what are the key features of the vectors. So one of the type of the vector is called the plasmid vectors that we are going to learn today. So we'll go through by the plasmid vector. Before that, a brief introduction about a vector. So everybody knows what is a vector. A vector is nothing but a carrier molecule which carries the foreign DNA into the host cell. So thereby what we do is that we, after the gene of interest has been isolated, that has to be attached with a carrier molecule called as vector, then it is inserted into the host cell so that it will replicate. So based on this we can classify different types of vectors. So what are the different types of vectors based on the source? We can classify it into one, that is a plasmid. Second is the bacteriophage or other viral vectors. Third is the cosmid, and fourth is the artificial chromosomes. So today we are going to study in depth about the plasmid vector. So any vector should have the following basic features. So nowadays the natural vectors are no longer available. All the vectors currently available in the market is an engineered vectors. So all these engineered vectors having three basic features. As you can see, one is that it has an origin of replication, so it can replicate itself. Second, it carries various restriction sites called as multiple cloning sites where you can insert the foreign DNA. And third, it carries a selectable marker where you can identify the vector carrying the gene. So these three factors can be easily identified in a picture. As you can see in a PUC19, I have taken one of the plasmid vector. It carries an ORI. Second, it carries an ampicillin resistant region, and third, it carries a multiple cloning site in LAC-EZ gene. This we will study elaborately while I was discussing about the PUC19 vector in depth. So let us consider first what is a plasmid. What is a plasmid as a vector? So before understanding the plasmid as a vector, first we understand a basic about what is a plasmid. So everybody knows that the plasmid is a naturally occurring genetic material. It is a extrachromosomal DNA present in some of the bacteria. So the bacteria which generally carries the plasmid we call as the F type, that is the F stands for the fertility type. So this called as F type bacteria or F strain bacteria. So you can see in humans also we have certain extrachromosomal DNA like the extrachromosomal DNA present in mitochondria. Similarly, the extrachromosomal DNA also present in bacteria. The presence of this extrachromosomal DNA provides some benefits to the bacteria, especially it helps the bacteria to produce some enzymes to protect itself from the antibiotics that we will administer during the infusion. It works as a defense mechanism for the bacteria against the toxic chemicals. So first one is the plasmid is a naturally occurring extrachromosomal DNA of the bacteria. So once we talk about why we can use plasmid and vectors, one of the major reason is that the plasmid can multiply itself inside a bacteria into many copies. So it can produce a huge number of copies, and also apart from isolation of the genomic DNA, we can easily isolate the plasmid DNA from a bacteria and purify it without any difficulty at all. So after that we can also reintroduce this plasmid into the same host cell or another host cell through a conjugation or transformation, and also it is steadily inherited by the host cell also. So these key features has been put into the mind that plasmid can be used as an cloning vector. So moreover, the plasmid generally exists as a double-stranded circular DNA molecule. It is present as a circular molecule, and most cases it is considered as a triple C DNA, where the triple C stands for the covalently closed circular DNA molecule. Because what happens once during conjugation from the genetic material, especially the plasmid transfers from one bacteria to another bacteria, it goes into a single strand, then by the circular mechanism it forms a circle. Similarly, the supplementary chain also produce and it forms a closed circular DNA. So some strain conditions, it can be converted to other forms. There are three possible forms of the plasmid is possible. Once it can be supercoiled and it forms a supercoiling of a DNA. Otherwise it can be nicked by an endonuclease activity, it can form a open circular DNA. Then it can, by the help of DNA ligase, it can once again comes to the covalently closed circular DNA. Generally the supercoiling happens some or other staining reasons, and this supercoiling is removed by the endonuclease activity and it nicks one of the DNA from its outer surface, then it relaxes, it forms an open circular DNA, and the nicked part is once again joined by the DNA ligase. So these are the three possible forms a plasmid can exist. So what are the features of the plasmid actually suggested us to choose this as a vector? So one of the key features is that the plasmid is widely distributed through various prokaryotic bacterial cells. So we can get different characteristics of plasmid from the different prokaryotic bacterial cell. That is one of the best feature why it can be considered as a vector. And second feature is that the plasmid have a size of around 1 to the 10 power, so we can consider about 1 into 10 to the power 6 daltons to 200 into 10 to the power 6 daltons, which is generally inheritable to be dispensed into a host cell. So the delivery of the plasmid also very easily choiceable, and moreover the plasmid have different phenotypic biomarkers which has been identified so far. If any phenotypic biomarker which is not ascribed or which is not described well, then it is that type of plasmids we call as a cryptic plasmids. So you can see the various phenotypic triads exhibited by this plasmid are most commonly used is the antibiotic resistance. So most of the plasmids are generally resistant to certain antibiotics like tetracycline, ampicillin, like that. Or some of the plasmids helps in the production of certain we call that certain antibiotics also. Generally certain bacteria produce antibiotics for the fitness of survival. And third, it also causes certain degradation of aromatic compounds, then it causes hemolysin production, then some causes sugar fermentation, and some enterotoxin production it causes. Some it is resistant to heavy metals, certain produces bacteriocin productions causes, certain causes tumors to the plants, causes induction of plant tumors, and lastly certain produces hydrogen sulfide. So these are the various phenotypic triads a plasmid can exist. These phenotypic triads are generally function as a biomarker for the identification of the plasmid cloned one. And finally you can see some host control restriction and modification also does. So based on this characteristic and features, some or other way we have to classify these plasmids. So how we can classify these plasmids? The plasmids can be classified on two types. One is based upon the number of copies, and second one is depending upon whether it carries tragenes. So you can see one by one classification. The first classification I can tell it is depending upon whether or not the plasmid is carrying the transfer gene called a stragene. So what is the function of this stragene is that this stragene helps in the conjugation. So it helps in the transfer of genetic material from one bacteria to another by a process called conjugation. So if this stragene is present, then the plasmid can be classified into two types. One is called the conjugative plasmid, and second it is called as a non-conjugative plasmid. So if a tragene is present, then it is called as a conjugative plasmid. If the tragene is absent, then it is called as a non-conjugative plasmid. So on the basis of copy number, it can be further classified into two types. You can see one is the relaxed plasmids, in which a plasmid can produce multiple copies per cell. So for example, even the PUC19 can produce more than 100 copies in a single cell. So the second type is called a stringent plasmid, that is, it produces only a limited number of copies per cell. So once we get a little bit insight on this plasmid, so we try to get the characteristics that a better vector can be a conjugative one with a relaxed plasmids. So this is the basic classification of the plasmid. So next part we will discuss about what are the various genetic characters present in a plasmid that can be comfortably used as a vector. So once we studied earlier what are the key characteristics the vector should carry, whether all these key characteristics are present in the plasmid or not. So before that, after that one, we were studying that the why we choose plasmid as a vector is some of the certain basic qualification characteristics, that is, plasmid can replicate itself, one. Second, the plasmid can produced in large quantities. Third, the plasmid can be isolated and purified. Apart from this, what is the basic clear-cut genetic character the plasmid should have to be considered as a vector. So if you can see, the first one is the plasmid encodes only few proteins required for its self-replication. Apart from this, it carries other proteins which is generally not needed by us. So only few proteins, or sometimes in most cases you can see only one protein is responsible for origin of replication, whereas the replication enzymes is generally acquired from the genomic DNA of the host cell, like DNA polymerase, DNA ligase and helicase, etc. It doesn't synthesize from the plasmid genetic code itself. And the third one is that apart from this origin of replications, the other sequences which is present in the DNA can be easily replaced or easily integrated with the foreign sequence without affecting the replication process of this bacterial plasmid. So this feature of plasmid makes us a versatile to construct as a vector. So the origin of replication helps us to replicate the bacteria independently of the chromosome. Apart from this ORI sequence, it also helps to produce maximum copy number. So generally a plasmid with high copy number is preferred as a vector, because a high copy number plasmid can be helped to produce the clones in large quantity and also helps to isolate it and to get a purified form. So for example, you can see certain E. coli plasmids and especially PUC19 can produce high copy number up to 100 times in a single course of generations. So this is one, that is the first key characteristics of a vector should be needed. That is one, that is the origin of replication. Apart from the plasmid having the origin of replication, it also have a high copy number, that it can produce the clones in large quantity. So the second one, it carries a selectable marker. So while we are studying the phenotypes, similarly the vector, especially the plasmid, contains the gene that encodes a protein that is needed for the cell to survive, that is needed for the bacterial cell, especially the host cell, to survive in an adverse conditions, or we can consider as a selective condition. Such a gene we consider as a selectable marker. That means if you see in the PUC19, I told the ampicillin resistant gene will be done. That is considered a selectable marker which helps the bacteria to grow in the presence of ampicillin. So the characteristics of a plasmid will be considered as a suitable vector. So by this marker we can easily identify the cloned gene also. So apart from this, the third one, what we are telling is the multiple cloning site. That means the vector should carry multiple cloning site for the integration of the foreign DNA. So similarly, the plasmid have a multiple cloning site. That means it carries a region where it carries a various sequence of marker for the restriction enzymes, which can be easily cleaved and the insertion of foreign DNA can happen. So these cleavage sites generally should carry the restriction sites of the enzymes which probably produces the sticky ends, because the sticky ends are preferred, because if the sticky ends are present, then it is easy to re-anneal once again with the foreign DNA rather than the blend end carrying restriction sites. So once the restriction site is opened up, we can easily add the foreign DNA and join the DNA fragment with the help of the DNA ligase. So this is why we consider the plasmid vector as a vector. So because the plasmid carries the origin of replication initiation, which helps in self-replication, apart from it produces maximum copy. Second, it carries a marker region, that means it can be grown selectively in a particular media, right? And third, it carries multiple cloning sites where the restriction sites will be present for the insertion of the foreign DNA. These three characters, since present in a plasmid, it has been considered as a good vector. It can be used both as a cloning vector as well as an expression vectors. So let us elaborately understand the plasmid as a vector through an example. So I have chosen an example of a plasmid vector, that is PUC19. So PUC19, as you can see, is a plasmid vector. So in the picture you are seeing, it carries the three regions. The yellow region represents the ORI, origin of replication initiation, and light blue region you can see is the LAC-Z alpha, which carries the multiple cloning sites having various enzymes listed out like ECOR1, SAC1, KPN1, SAMA1, BAMI1, like the HIN3 up to HIN3. So where you can insert the foreign DNA. And third is the ampicillin resistant region, which works as a biomarker. So the PUC19 carries all the three regions which is needed for a vector. So PUC19 acts as a plasmid vector. So the origin of replication initiation helps in the replication autonomously of the vector inside a host cell. So it also produces, as you've already discussed, that it also produces a copy number of 100 in a single cycle. So then second is that it carries a multiple cloning site, especially in the LAC-Z gene. So what is this LAC-Z gene also about is that this LAC-Z gene encodes a particular enzyme called beta-galactosidase. It is simply called as BGAL. So this enzyme beta-galactosidase breaks down the disaccharide, especially lactose, into galactose and glucose. So this enzyme will help in the identification, especially in the cloning. So consider if I clone a particular foreign DNA into its LAC-Z gene, so the LAC-Z gene will no longer to be an intact. So it is no longer has an ability to produce the enzyme beta-galactosidase. So it has a no longer ability to catalyze the disaccharide lactose into a galactose and glucose. So the functional enzyme doesn't produced. So if a foreign DNA is inserted, then the LAC-Z gene will be no longer intact and it is no longer produced as a functional enzyme. So this helps in the detection of the clone. So if I insert a foreign DNA into the host cell, so if the LAC-Z gene seems to be intact, then the foreign DNA is not inserted. If the LAC-Z gene is disturbed, then it is considered a foreign DNA is inserted. How it can be identified? So it can be easily identified after insertion this into a host cell. If I grow the bacteria into a media, so into a media carrying a chemical called X-gal. X-gal is nothing but a chemical of 5-bromo-4-chloro-3-indolyl D-galactopyronoside. So if I add this into the medium, so what happens is that if the LAC-Z gene is intact, in which the foreign DNA is not present, then it produces a blue colored colonies. If the foreign DNA is inserted and the LAC-Z gene is got disturbed, then it is no longer produces a functional enzyme beta-galactosidase, so it doesn't produce any blue colored colonies, so the colonies will remain white. So this is how we can detect the clone, whether the foreign DNA is taken up or not. Second is that after that, if you are inserted, then we need a biomarker, that is the marker region, that is detection of the host cell carrying the plasmid. So consider I have isolated the plasmid, I have added the foreign DNA, then I am inserting into another host cell which doesn't carry the plasmid. So this biomarker helps to identify the two sets of bacteria carrying plasmid or bacteria doesn't carrying plasmid. So in the plasmid, the biomarker is present. So in this case, the plasmid vector, that is PUC19, which can be inserted into a host cell, especially E. coli, which can easily taken up this plasmid, and the plasmid PUC19 contains the biomarker, that is ampicillin resistant. Ampicillin resistant gene is responsible for the destruction of ampicillin. So if I grow the cultured cell into a minimal media is nothing but a media which carries the antibiotic ampicillin. If I grow it, the bacteria which doesn't carry the plasmid doesn't produce any ampicillin resistance, so it will die, and the bacteria which is carrying the ampicillin resistant gene, that is in the plasmid, then it will grow. That means the plasmid inserted host cell will grow in the minimal media, and the cell which it doesn't contain the plasmid will die. So this is how the biomarker works. So by using this PUC19, what I can do is I can detect all the things in a single media, that is I can detect the host cell carrying the DNA clone. So what I will do is I will prepare a minimal media. The minimal media carries the ampicillin along with X-gal. So if the bacteria doesn't carry the plasmid, it will die. If the bacteria carries the plasmid, which is with or without foreign DNA, if it carrying without foreign DNA, that is the wild plasmid itself, then it will be identified because of the X-gal, the intact lac-Z gene into a blue color, that is the functional gene. If it carries a foreign DNA, then it will appear white color because the successful cloning has happened. So on that aspect we can isolate it, then we can use it. So I can summarize all those things by simply showing your illustrative example of a process of insertion of PUC19 vector, cloned vector into a host cell and its identification. So you can see the process of insertion of foreign DNA into a PUC19 vector occurs like this. So we have taken a plasmid vector, especially PUC19, in that it carries a lac-Z gene where the multiple cloning site is there. One of the multiple cloning site, it carries a restriction site for ECOR1, which generally restricts, especially the restriction sequence called GAATTC. So I am treating the vector with the restriction endonuclease ECOR1. What happens is it cuts the DNA and it produces a sticky end. So with the same restriction enzyme ECOR1, what I am doing is I am restricting a genomic DNA. So it also restricts the same sequence, that is GAATTC, very precisely, and it produces the fragments of the donor DNA. Then I will mix it together. By mixing this, what happens is that the foreign DNA gets inserted, attached with the ampicillin resistant carrying gene along with the larger segment of the vector. So this one is treated with DNA ligase. So the DNA ligase and this because of this cohesive ends, it will anneal and it forms an rDNA, recombinant DNA molecule, that is the vector carrying the foreign DNA. So but here the ampicillin resistant sites will be intact, whereas the lac-Z gene will no longer will be intact. So how I can identify is I will grow this one after insertion into the E. coli, the host organism. The E. coli gets started cultivated into a petri dish carrying the minimal media. So the minimal media carries ampicillin, antibiotic and X-gal. So once I will grow it, I can identify two types of colonies. One will be a blue colony and another will be a white colony. So if the bacteria E. coli doesn't carries any plasmid, it won't grow in the minimal media. So the plasmid which it carries, it only grow in the minimal media. So if the blue color occurs, means the B gal region will be very intact, and if white color occurs, means the B gal, that is the lag agent region, has been inserted or successfully cloned with a foreign DNA. So this white colony has been isolated and gets cultivated in a manner so we can get the rDNA clone in large quantity. Later on, after cultivation, the plasmid DNA is isolated, purified, and that one is used for it. So the PUC19, if it does an expression vector, then it also can be used as an expression vector. So this is all about the plasmid vector. So I will thank you very much for patiently listening this lecture. This lecture will surely provides an insight about the plasmid vector. So what actually I will summarize by completing this lecture is that what we have learned through this lecture is that one, so what is meant by a vector? Second, what are the different types of vectors? In the type, based on the source, we talk about the plasmid and what is meant by a plasmid, and next we studied why the plasmid has been chosen as a vector. So it is chosen based on its genetic makeup, especially its origin of replication, its biomarker, and third, it carries a multiple cloning sites. And moreover, we have studied the process of how it is identified with a simple representation of the illustration of the example, that is the processing of insertion of the foreign DNA. So I will thank you very much. So in the future lectures, I will come with some other plasmid vectors also, especially PBR322 and other bacteriophage, cosmid and other vectors. So thank you very much. Bye.